ये expiry कौन तेरा बाप उठाएगा? I go to a chemist and I tell him that, sir, I've come from Glaxo आपकी सेवा के लिए. And he didn't really bother too much about me. He said, okay, you wait, because he had customers. Then he came down and he threw a carton at me. Okay, I had to duck. The guy added a few words and he said कि तुम लोग आते नहीं हो. But the beauty of marketing, at least which was my motivation, was this: that if you were to look at marketing, it is really about making that connection between the customer and that organization. It is really about bringing that little tinkle in the eye of that customer. Okay. And to be able to do so, it requires multitude of things.
Hey there, welcome to Marketing Mavericks with Indifolio. Today, Amit Pandey is joining us, who's a seasoned marketer having a career over 2 decades. Amit's last stint was as the business head at Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail, where he led collective and a lot of international brands for them. Before that, he was with ITC, and before that, he was in pharma at GSK. He talks a lot about his learnings across each of these categories, and we have extracted some phenomenal insights for young marketers today. Hey Amit, thanks for your time and welcome to the podcast.
It's a pleasure that we are finally being able to do this. It's very interesting. Yes, I hope it is meaningful for your audience. Yes.
Super stoked because the kind of brands you've led and the journey you've had, a lot of marketeers would love to be in your shoes one day. It's also really exciting to see that at a stage where a lot of people are thinking of going fractional or kind of settling in, you've decided to take on a new challenge in a new geography. We'll talk about all of that in some time, but I want to take you back to Rajasthan, where I believe you were studying, physics, chemistry, math, and a lot of those things. Um, how is it that you decided that while you were pursuing BSc that marketing is something which is a career you want to build?
Well, so this was very interesting. Obviously, my first love was physics, to be very honest. It's a subject I still keep in touch with. And I was trying to get into research and stuff like that. One of our family friends, he is an old IIM Ahmedabad alumnus. And he caught me one day and he said that, beta, I think you'll be much better off doing an MBA and do something in marketing. And his view was that, see, you have a very diverse interest, because would read across different subjects, I would converse about different things, etc. I had done a lot of things in terms of even socially, being active, etc. So he felt that I'll be better off in this job than being in a laboratory. And I think it was quite right. Worked out for me.
Fantastic. But so I must pose this question to you. Often I see engineers, BSc grads become marketeers. I think maybe 50%, if not more, of my guests have that background. And this maybe confuses a person who wants to pursue a career in marketing because conventionally they think it's creative advertising, making, cool things for a brand, and the deeper they learn about a subject, they realize it's so much more analytical, data driven. You to prove ROI at the end of the day. And with Martech and a lot more, it seems to get more and more technical. Everybody's expected to now talk business. So if I'm somebody who's curious like you, but I don't know if I'm analytical or more creative, could you unpack who's marketing ideally for?
See, marketing is it's a very vast subject. I mean, to be honest, and obviously with all the technology coming in, it's becoming even bigger. I think because there are tools which needs very specific training. You need to be very good at a few things, which was always the case. To be honest, for example, if you were planning a media campaign, so there will be these people who will be able to place your spots on the television, figure out what's the delivery. Now, it's a very niche sort of a skill, requires a lot of numbers. At the same time, you have to then toggle between the appropriateness of the content, etc., etc. So that always was the case, but obviously now with a lot more data, a lot more technology coming in, it is becoming a lot more bigger, wider field, and obviously no one person can manage it. But the beauty of marketing, at least which was which was my motivation, was this: that if you were to look at marketing, it is really about making that connection between the customer and that organization. Okay, I would have had said the brand or the product back in the day. Today, I say it's an organization, because that's how you start, thinking, maybe thinking a little wider. But it is really about bringing that little tinkle in the eye of that customer.
Mm,
Okay, and to be able to do so, it requires multitude of things,
mm,
because that is that moment of truth. And if you can understand how to deliver it, that moment of truth, that little tinkle in the eye, then you will suddenly start to realize that if you start from that little origin and you draw it back, you will probably have to use almost everything. You would have to be analytical, you would have to have a creative bend, and more importantly, you will have to understand people and their emotions, because people
mm,
buy eventually for emotions.
mm,
Okay, the practicality of it, of course, is needed, but then that's the support. So you need to have a bend of both. I have personally always said that marketing is for people who are very sharp thinkers. I think the people who do very, very well in marketing are people who have ability to cut through the clutter and get very sharp about what they are to do. Now, you could even argue that this is the same skill which is needed in a lot of other fields, which is true. But here, perhaps more so, because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with emotions, and you're dealing obviously with the practicality of things, right? I mean, commercially, things have to be viable, product has to deliver, it has to be made in a cost which is beneficial, okay, to create value eventually. So that's what I would think about it. I think it needs a blend of both, and I think that's what makes this field very, very exciting, and it's great. Yeah,
yeah, I think I really um, vouch for the fact that fundamentally understanding the customer and deciding will this customer like what I'm presenting is the first principal job. They usually marketing decides ki ye chalega ki nahi, right? And that's very hard to kind of conclude, and it needs, as you said, a bunch of it's an art as a science.
true.
Um, I want to now jump into understanding first jobs a marketer should do. The conventional approaches one has is you can go the servicing side, the consulting side, you can do the sales stint, you can even directly join as a marketer. And even today, there are so many options of starting yourself, or going and joining a startup, or even working with an enterprise. You ended up joining one of the biggest brands out there as your first job. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience, how you got it, and if you look back, how should a marketer approach their first job?
Yeah, so see, I mean, life takes its own path, right? I mean, and you go through, and you go with whatever you get, in a way. I was very lucky to get through to my first job. It was at then a pharmaceutical company called GlaxoSmithKline. Okay, and part of the reason why I chose them over some other options on the campus was because I think those people were wearing ties, and they were a lot more polite and a lot more polished, and they of course had a very good management traineeship at that time.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think it was the stints that they made me go through, which probably set a very interesting foundation for me. Obviously, I had my ideas, I had exposure from education point of view, which, by the way, I believe was very nice. But going out there in the market, okay, I mean, on the sales stint, for example, for the first day, some people may not know the geography of Bombay, but I was staying in a place called the Andheri, Viradesai Road, and my sales stint was in Bhiwandi. So, just to cut it short, it's about 2.5 hours of a commute through buses and metros. And I land up there, and the first retailer, I go to a chemist and I tell him that, sir, I've come from Glaxo, आपकी सेवा के लिए. And he didn't really bother too much about me. He said, okay, you wait, because he had customers. And then after the customers, little bit lesser, then he came down and he threw a carton at me. Okay, I had to duck, and the guy added a few words and he said कि तुम लोग आते नहीं हो, ये एक्सपायरी कौन तेरा बाप उठाएगा. So So you so you start with that. Okay, and it's fascinating because I think until this you go through that, right, you're always, as my first boss used to say, you will otherwise be a paper tiger. I
Mm.
think it's very important to realize the real world and keep engaging with it. I think that is critical. Okay, and so that stint, that foundation, and after management and I did variety of projects, by the way. Okay, something in data, something about packaging, da da da, and then of course some entry strategies, which got me into controversy because I was always independent thinker, and I had my own ideas, but nonetheless. But eventually they gave me a job to convert some of their old pharmaceutical products to OTC, and that
Mm.
was fascinating. I was what, I think 22.5 or something like that, and then suddenly I had some seven products, seven brands to be converted, created, and that then started to get me, think about things in many ways. For example, the product needs to be stable within a certain kind of packaging. So there are, things, the studies which have to be done for it. The packaging communicates something to people. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So that, I think, got me a different taste, and that sort of decided. So if somebody's starting today, um, my and again, I think it depends on people, because some people want to specialize. People want to probably be on the agency side, etc. They're more on around the advertising, then maybe that suits them. uh, but I would say, if you are a little bit more wider, if you are more journalist, then I think go for an experience like that. Go and face the market. It'll start giving you insights. It'll tell you what the world really is about, and then eventually you hopefully should be able to create something nice. Yeah,
One of my favorite quotes is Mike Tyson's, where he says, "You can prepare all you want for a fight till you get punched in the face." And
that
I
is
think
so true.
often students face that in their first gigs, that okay, this is how linearly your journey should be, but that never happens.
No.
I wanted to ask you, Amit, the the dilemma a lot of marketers face while deciding between a young company and a MNC or a large behemoth is something probably you highlighted, that if you have original ideas and thoughts and you want to change things, you can't in a large company. And when it comes to a smaller one, you have a lot more freedom, but at the same point in time there is scale and structure, which you can also learn a lot from, which probably a startup may not teach you. So if you were to kind of come up with any framework to decide what are the like pros and cons of a big company versus a startup, how would you tackle it if you were to decide this today? If I kind of take you back to when you were 22 years old.
I think I did not have that choice at that point of time. I mean, we did not have that startups, but my word would still be, go join a large company to begin with. Okay, I think, see, one has to realize that the large company was not a large company when it started out. Okay, it was a
Right.
small company at some point of time. They went through the market, they found their niche, they found a way to bring that tinkle in the eye of their customer consistently,
Mm,
and then deliver it through their people all the time. Okay, and in
mm,
the process, they ended up creating certain practices, and these might be very small ones, but they're very important. Okay, now for example, I'll tell you, in my first job, when anybody would visit a chemist, okay, or a retailer, they would go about doing the analysis of the market, because you're going there with a very clear purpose of understanding what the market is like. The process of doing that, the questioning of doing that, was same for, right from the most junior most person to the head of the organization.
mm,
I worked with ITC Limited for so many years, and there, when we visit the store, how we question, what insights we are looking for, that system is exactly the same. Of course, when the executive vice president sales and marketing goes there, in his probably 2 minutes of questioning, he is able to get tons of information. Maybe you can spend half an hour and you probably will get this much information. Process is the same, but the practice that makes you perfect. I think it is very important to go through the rigor and be molded into practices that can deliver time after time. Startups are a great opportunity, but we have to remember that these are also organizations which are still trying to find, they're trying to solve a problem, they're trying to find their feet, they're trying to create that path. And so I think it is a lot of experimentation, but you may end up getting too less. You may end up becoming very surface. You need depth, okay, to eventually cut through in anything that you do.
Definitely, what I can share is my perspective because I started my company in the 12th grade, and it's still running. We finished about 11 years, and I've never really
Oh,
worked
that's
with any
wonderful.
company. Um, I realized that it was probably a mistake in retrospect because I used to invent playbooks in my head when I was like 17, 18, just to realize this is something which has been happening for 50 years and this is the right way to do it. And I was like, I could have saved so much time by just learning from other people's experiences, legacy, and failures. There's a lot of urge you have as a young person to kind of do stuff which is new just because you're not aware. So you think that you know it all. But that Dunning Kruger plays in where the more you learn, the more you realize I actually don't know anything. And that's why I think the 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 advice to work in a large company and that structure is so critical. And in fact, once you have that structure and you go to a startup, you'll innovate so much better because
That is
once you
true.
know the rules is when you can break the rules. Otherwise you're just probably wasting time. And let's say I'm making a perfume, it's something tangible, and I've made a product, let's say. How many customers do I need to try it with before I kind of launch it, or get yeses before I launch it? Is there any number there?
Well, I'm a big believer in qualitative research. Okay.
Makes
And in
sense.
qualitative research, the answer is very, very simple. When you talk to more customer and you're not hearing anything new,
Hmm.
it means that you have done enough.
Fantastic.
Okay. I mean, that's how, so it's a very, very simple answer, actually, if you think about it. Okay. Because you're not getting any new insight. I think that's really where it is, in my view.
Love that. Look for incremental insights. If you don't find them, then I think you can stop there and launch. So I love that
Correct.
as a heuristic.
Yeah.
We are a network of design and video experts, right? So we match a lot of brands with packaging guys, video folks, and often founders come and say, "Hey, I'm selling something cost effective or something cheap right now. Give me a new brand, new logo, and a cool website. I'll start charging them more." And I think obviously premiumization is a lot more deeper than that. What's your take on premiumization and the journey you've kind of had with the collective?
One, of course, for a lot of those customers, money is not a problem. Money
Hmm.
was always there. I think it was a certain person, I think in our research in Bangalore, he had said that money was never a problem for my family. Money was always there. But thank God all of these things are there. Now at least the money can buy me something. You know, the problem is slightly different there. You know. Um, and of course, even in this category, it is not as if that anybody will buy anything. It is not like that they are coming in with 100 rupee notes and making a cigar out of them or something like that, right? I mean, they're very, very careful about the money, and you have to again understand how value gets created for the customer. How do you deliver that value? What does that value actually mean? And how do you create a relationship with the brand? Because remember, this is also a retailing brand. In a retailer's brand, it's a slightly different view because you need to keep the transactions going. You need to keep the cash till ticking, particularly.
Hmm.
So you need to keep this customer coming back for more. And our inciting started out, we did a research again, and we again a qualitative research to get a sense of what do people think about, how are they thinking about these categories, why do they wear this, etc. And we found that, well, this is a, at least at that point of time, it was a still very emergent customer. It had not stratified into different segments per se. Although we did do some analysis and we were able to, through statistics, eke out about six different segments. Okay. Four of them were our target segments. Two of them we said no, we don't really want to bother about them. Out of the four, three were we were already good with. The one new one was the additional incremental segment that we would have had got. Uh, but one thing which was very clear was this, that everybody is coming in because they want something which is very exclusive. And this I'm actually almost taking you through the brand identity prism, okay, which is a beautiful tool for any marketer. I think one should learn that very well. And the relationship between the brand and the customer, the brand is the style mentor, okay, which is, so you, because you are actually almost teaching the customer, but but the customer doesn't want to be taught. Customer thinks he's already very, very stylish, but you
Right.
still, have to give them something. Finding a solution which is right for that customer, which is what matters the most. And how you want the customer to feel, they need to feel that they are part of the select few, right? And then we develop the entire retailing experience around it.
Mm.
Okay, the design of the store, the journey that a consumer will go through, the type of staff that we're going to have, how they're going to speak, what they're going to speak. There is a job manual for every little job in that
Mm.
business. Okay, so when you come in, you get a job manual, which is like a 30, 40 pager thing, inspired by my diving, by the way. I'm a diver. So in diving, they have these small little manuals, and, somebody certifies, your coach certifies that you are good. And so we followed a simple, similar system um, to deliver that service experience, which is branded and memorable. That's
Mm.
something that you get only at the collective. And that is why, for example, when post COVID, interestingly, and we had a great time in COVID, by the way, we grew 3% that year, when the entire apparel industry has had dropped by almost 50 to 60%.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were able to do that because we had, our digital ecosystem was set. We had launched our omni-channel in 2015.
Super.
It was representation of the brand in digital, because everything has to be branded, and it's really about the brand. So we had already built it up in which our staff never felt threatened by the e-commerce piece. So when
Mm.
the lockdown started to happen, we could very quickly start to reach out to the customers at home and make the transactions there.
Mm.
And of course, my team was wonderful, and they did some amazing work. But post COVID, when the market started to open up, everybody was saying, "Oh my God, luxury is dead because now everybody is going abroad and they're going to buy there, etc." And a lot of people, even within the company, kept asking me, "Oh, Amit, what's going to happen to the business and stuff like that?" And it's like, okay, don't worry, don't worry, we got it. We got the insight. We got the relationship. And they
Yeah.
kept coming back and purchasing from us.
Mm. Mm.
We did some of the best like to likes ever, because of that relationship. So it was a
Mm.
very interesting example of contrast Mangaldeep with this.
Yeah.
Okay, in Mangaldeep again, it's inciting. It is about talking about, what consumers are feeling like, putting in the physical portion of the product, the rational portion of the product together, and connecting it with what the consumers are using that category for purity of
Mm.
prayer, right?
Mm.
And in the collective, again, you got the entire functional part of the product. That's what I'll say it. Your retailing experience, your staff, their behavior, their training, the customer experience journey, the digital, the brand selection, its pricing, and obviously advertising, etc., etc. And of course, what is it that they seek to do to make a statement that they are very special, they're exclusive, they're of a certain type. So, and you deliver that. Now, to me, both of these, price point is incidental.
Mm-hmm.
In both of these, price point is incidental. The principles of what you're trying to do and solve is the same.
Mm.
The
Mm.
principles are the same in both
Mm.
of these applications. So, in my mind, they are not very different things. I was pretty much doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is the process of solving for that context, right?
Mm.
Which is what matters. And that is
Right.
where, if you remember, that the thing that I fear the most is this, that I assume that I already know the customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is fossilization.
Correct. Very incredible. I think um, I want to now, go to the last part of the chat, and talking about recruitment. Right. I'd love to ask you, if I'm a young marketer, what signals do I need to kind of give to probably my recruiters, right? What does a marketing leader like you look for in young marketers?
I think curiosity, for sure. I think a sharper mind. Okay. And in today's time, exposure.
Okay.
Exposure is very important. Okay, and exposure, uh, not at surface level.
Mm,
Okay, I think people need to read, they need to go in depth behind something, whatever they see. And internet today and the availability of all the materials that is there, it's a blessing. Trust
mm,
me, when I was growing up, that was not the case. I used to spend hours in the library, okay, discovering books here and there, etc. But this one is totally different level, and you can get, for example, these days, videos of some of the best people, and it's all available for free,
mm,
right? I think a budding marketer should have that ability to demonstrate that exposure, to be curious, and be able to engage with what is in front of her, and then come out with something insightful. And obviously, almost every recruiter will want to ask you, "Have you researched me? Why do you want to join me? Just because I'm
right.
going to give you a paycheck, or is it a little bit more than that?"
Correct.
Spend some time doing some research, ask them questions which are insightful. Yeah,
But
I think
but
that
like,
should be
let's say I'm a curious person or I'm wanting to be curious. How do I showcase that in an interview? Because I mean, it's easy to say, "Hey, I'm a curious person," but how do you find out if a person's genuinely curious or not?
Well, I think that's very, very simple. I mean, if I was to now start asking you questions about, indie folio, right? If I'm, let's say, recruiting, I'm interviewing with you. So I will probably do some research. Okay, nice name, indie folio. Okay, why would they call it indie folio? Okay, I will want to know, right? I would want to know what they're thinking about. Okay, I would want to know their history. I would like to go through their work, right? I would
Mm,
like to see what the promoters may have put out as videos and things like that, right? And by doing this research, I will probably already have tens of questions, or if not that, at least a comment to say,
mm,
hey, by the way, very interesting perspective. You used a word like that. Is this is what I took? Is that how it is?
lovely.
Right? I mean, it's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it's it's so straightforward, but it pains me so few people do it. And I think what you kind of recommend it is a really, really low hanging fruit for everybody who's listening, wants to be work with a marketing leader. I think do that. People will really appreciate that. Um, I want to now ask a question on behalf of the IndieFolio network, right? So we are a network of thousands of freelancers and agency founders, and we do a lot of work in web, video, and design. And with AI coming up, right, we see a lot of in-housing happening, a lot of conversations around the end of the agency world, how marketing will be a one-person team, and they will be able to generate everything on the fly. Question to you is, as somebody who must have worked with so many creatives and agencies in your career, how can a agency founder giving creative services stay relevant in the upcoming years?
Well, I think th- all of this is a little bit too overhyped. I mean, that is true. That's maybe some technical functions of, let's say, generating an image. And was very recently, I had the pleasure of utilizing some tools for this, and it's so simple, because earlier to do something we probably would have had to set up a shoot and get the right models, etc., etc. It can be done very, very quickly now. But if you were doing that kind of a job, which was just making a few things here and there, etc., I think yes, there is a little bit of a difficulty.
Hmm,
But I don't know if a marketing person really wants an agency for that. I think a marketing person needs an agency for ideating, for understanding the customer better, of having another bouncing board,
hmm,
okay, about what may work, what may not work, given an external perspective into, even if it's just communication, right?
hmm.
uh, it is that partnership, I think, that matters a lot more than just the images that come with it. Images is a result of what you would want to do.
Yeah,
And I think maybe if anything else, then it possibly only makes the need for all the agencies to step up their game in terms of bringing in actual insights, being curious, truly curious about the client and their industry. How many marketing agencies today spend time on their own, going into the market and checking out, how their clients' products are selling, or what the
correct.
consumers are talking about it, etc. But you don't. If you don't, then when you're going to be standing in front of the client, you will not have any major insights to say, outside of,
Right.
oh, flashy this and flashy that. Okay, so yeah, I think if you can just focus on this true partnership, I don't think there is a problem, because, in fact, you will use AI and your
Mm.
costs will come down. The client doesn't want to use AI.
Correct.
You know, you will be way better, even in terms of the visual appeal or whatever has to be created, or even creativity. Okay, I mean, clients are normally not the most creative people, and it's a danger sign if they're creative.
Right.
You know? So you will be able to create so much more value.
Right.
But the thing about having the clients interest at heart, spending their time, being engaged with that brand product, going out there, figuring out what the consumers are saying, how the competition is doing, being curious about it, being a partner, I think that's what creates value.
Yeah, I think being a partner is so important, and I think that's what really differentiates a really great agency from a good one, because um, often people just are a production partner, which is you tell me what you want and I'll just make it for you. And I think those folks are it's time that those folks really upskill themselves, because genuinely there's going to be no need for such services. But the some of my favorite clients are the ones where we actually discuss the strategy at length. We really discuss insights at length, and those are also more fulfilling projects
Yeah.
compared to just doing a lot of execution. So fully agree with that as well. So, Amit, I think what an incredible conversation. You've shared so many anecdotes, and I think I've learned so much over the last hour. Didn't even realize an hour went by. As a parting thought, I'd love to, ask you the last question. If I am somebody who wants to become a CMO one day, a head of marketing one day, and I'm young, I'm in my 20s, I've done maybe 1 2 stints in marketing. What are the things I should double down on and focus on to become a leader one day?
See, to be very honest with you, it's very, very difficult to put a formula to it. Okay. But if you are very clear that you want to be a CMO one day, I think it is very important to understand what the current CMOs are doing. Okay, and by the time you are going to get around to it, how the world may change. Now, it will give you a set of things that you need from one perspective of what does it take to become one, okay, and what experiences they have gone through. Because you see, uh, at the senior level, you need a very, very firm hand for the company. Okay, things may be very, very good when the going is nice for the company, but it never stays that way. There will be some shocks. And maybe in the peace time, you may find, oh, what is it that this guy is actually doing? But when a crisis comes, his instincts kick in, and then, he holds the steering in the right way. And that is what is the value of. So, what will it take to make you that steady hand? It can happen only through engagement, it can only happen through experience, it can only happen through the character that you're able to develop within. So
Mm,
what is that path, and am I getting an opportunity to do that today, is important. And what is the other thing, how will the environment change?
mm,
Now we can't really predict, but at least we can have some thoughts about it. And therefore, if this is how it is going to be, can I become very, very good at a new skill, right? I don't know, maybe, for example, uh, insight plus AI intervention which delivers something which is at, let's say, one tenth the cost,
mm.
and maybe super quick, something like that. So can I become really, really good at that?
Right.
Right. And that has to come from your heart. Okay. You cannot become good at everything. Okay. Whatever works for you is something
Correct.
that you should do, and then go with the journey and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think develop specialized knowledge, and the only way to do that is actually by trying. Like usually, people feel an insight comes first and then an action comes, but it's always that an action comes first and then an insight comes. So don't just kind of sit कि एक बार कुछ idea आएगा and I'll become great at it. I want to, however, just ask you one last thing, which is any advice you wish somebody told you when you were younger.
You know what? I've been very, very lucky. Okay, extremely lucky. There's no way. I mean, not that I've done like supremely well in my career, but I think it's been a very fulfilling one for sure. And that's something that I can say. I know that it's not true for many, many people. Um, Maybe one thing that may have really helped me probably is that I should have a little bit more confidence and be more relaxed about myself. In a way, not get too angsty at times about things. I think that probably could have had made for a little bit more easier life, but then it's not been bad at all. Very
Lovely.
nice.
I think don't take your devs too seriously. A lot of successful people say that. Don't worry too much. It's all fine. Is
Yeah.
I think what I extract from there. So thank you so much, Amit. I think you've been fantastic, and this ends the conversation. I had a pleasure hosting you, and hope you had a good time.
Oh no, absolutely. I think it was so fascinating to see you started out your own agency at the age of 12, which is amazing. Although you were talking about it in a different context, but I think this is amazing because you have so much of a runway ahead of you. And I think being clear about that, I want to do something, which is fantastic, and it looks like it is still giving you joy. I can see it here, on the screen, and this is great because if you're clear about what you want to do, it gives you joy. Just keep doing it. I think that's what makes for a very fulfilling life. So it was a great pleasure myself, Kavan. Thank you so much.
Totally. Thank you so much for those kind words, and I'll be in touch. For everybody who's stuck along till the end, thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to hear another marketing leader, please subscribe to our channels, and a new episode will come out very soon. Bye bye.